Hi, we're here at the Farmers Market for Street Talk to ask the question, what event in history most changed the world and why?
I would say the birth of Jesus Christ.
I think, for me, I think it was the awakening by Buddha, and the fact that his awakening and teaching people about the center path has affected millions and millions and millions of people for hundreds of years, ever since he was born.
The event that I believe most changed history was the invention and implementation of the Gutenberg press. Getting free speech out there, getting the ability to spread the word. And this is why. Because I think it's really important to get information out, and that probably helped with education, getting people politically aware, just letting people make decisions about their lives that before, you know, great rulers and gods made that nobody else did. There you go, sir. Thank you very much.
My goodness, that's a wonderful question. You must be getting some fascinating answers. Well, let me tell you, without having to think ahead of time, I'd like to quote a woman who, you see, I'm here with the Pence Gallery. That's a community gallery here in town, and we have exhibitions every month, and the artist usually speaks at the same time. So I'm going to quote her instead of my own opinion. Someone asked her what event had influenced her art a great deal and when it happened, and she said 1972, when birth control became available to women and set them free. So that was her answer.
There's so many things that have changed the course of history that it's pretty hard to nail just one or two of them down. We've had several wars that have been fought with the idea that would be the end of war. World War II, then in Korea, a lot of people have forgotten about. And then in Korea, we lost 36,000 American guys, and then in Vietnam, I think it's around 58,000. So those are things that made people wonder a little bit. But there's quite a lot of things that change the course of history. History changes gradually.
The world was the invention of agriculture, because it totally changed the way that our societies were settled and developed, and the way that people became communities. So that's my answer.
The invention of the industrial plant, industrialization. Went from an agricultural economy to mechanical economy, changed everything.
Signing the Magna Carta. Can't remember the year, but it set it out a precedent for the rights of the people in ruling and the rule of law. It's the Magna Carta.
I think computers have most changed the world recently and will continue to do that in the future. I think the fact that the computers have given us an opportunity to communicate worldwide, internationally. Information travels much more rapidly. And the telephone system, of course, has provided that avenue. But I think computers will continue to impact our lives. Right now, it's in the business realm. I think somewhere in the vicinity of about 30% of the households in the United States have computers at home. And hopefully, you know, throughout, because of the lower prices in computers, most people will have access to them.
What's kind of a corny answer, but probably the invention of the printer, or print movable type, Gutenberg. Because then people were able to make all these things and have the proliferation of like information that we have today, good or bad.
Wow. The Big Bang. One event? I would say the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the American Revolution. I mean, it was when we finally threw off the yoke of medieval kings and said, no, people should rule themselves.
Galileo's discovery. That's mine, that we're not the center, that we began to look outside ourselves, finally. That's what I think.
Who knows? The invention of antibiotics, which caused the human race to boom so incredibly. That changed the population dynamics pretty incredibly, but that's just one of so many.
People started to think that civil rights for everybody, even though the civil rights movement started with the black movement, but then we got the women and the gay rights movement and everybody else.
Well, the Industrial Revolution, I would say, is the event which most changed history, when the technology started to advance at an accelerated rate, and it changed our social structure because people stopped working at home. Work was divided between a workplace and the home. Men and women no longer worked together as a unit, so it changed the way the family structure worked. And I think that's created the environmental impacts that we've seen. It made possible increasing population with big agricultural advances from heavy equipment, the type of agricultural expansion that made huge population increases accelerate, and I think that we see that that's the world we live in today.
Probably one of the most recent events that changed the history of the world has been the invention of the microchip. I think that computers and the microchip have moved us from the industrial age into the information age, and right now we're in the middle of that revolution, and particularly schools that I'm most interested in are going to have to cope with how we can prepare our young people to live in the information age. The 21st century is not going to depend on the Industrial Revolution. It's going to depend on how we can deal with information, analyze it, and use it to solve the problems that beset our society.
Oh, let's see. I think probably the Civil War. I think that, you know, it really changed this whole country in terms of making people realize that we needed to make sure that people have equal rights and equal protection under the law.
He's retiring. Maybe the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
The end of the regime and the end of the actual end of what we saw as the beginning of everybody getting together.
Well, let's see. When you're talking about history, you're talking from 6,000 BC till now. And I would suspect then, if we're talking about really looking back in many, many millennia, I would suspect something like the Christianity in the world. That has had a tremendous effect, as have all religions in our world. So, okay?
Let's see, I think the event that probably changed the world the most, or has the most impact, would be the advent of printing and communication. And as a basis for all what you guys are doing, for example, you know, because dealing with how to get the word out to people is one of the key elements in just involving people in dialogue. So I would have to say printing and communication, and how that's all evolved over the centuries.
Probably some scientific invention. Copernicus and his belief that, and his, it was Copernicus, I think, that the Earth revolved around the sun as opposed to everything revolving around the Earth. Yeah.
What event in history most changed the world, and why?
What event in history most changed? I think the development of the atomic bomb. Well, first of all, it was devastating.
I think it changed the whole concept of life as we know it. Here comes my daughters. Hi, Nina. I think it changed the concept of life as we know it. I think that the fact that it ended World War II, but it took it took the life of hundreds of thousands of people, and it affected a great deal of people. I think that has dramatically affected our overall existence. I think it was the development of the Cold War, and I think that was probably one of the most what word am I looking for? Probably that highly impacted not only the entire world at one instant. I think that was it.
Thank you.
Sure.
How about the invention of agriculture? Before that, it was just hunting and gathering, and after that, people could stay in one place. And among other things, start ruining the soil, overpopulating, developing literature, arts. But it's hard when you're a hunter and gatherer constantly moving around to do those things.
The World War II and One and Two. Huh? Because there was too many people got killed, and it was all because of land. Everybody wants somebody else's land. See, so in other words, we make up our mind to stop wanting other people's land. Maybe there won't be any more wars.
The French Revolution, because it was the first time in history that that poor people ever were able to successfully organize and bring about a fundamental change in the government and the economic conditions. And they met with only limited success, but it really blazed the trail and showed that it can be done. That people who are suffering really can organize together and do something to change their condition.
Well, I think colonialism probably changed the world, and the freedom that ensued from colonial countries throwing off the masters. I think, to me, because I come from a pre-colonial country. So.
Tampons. Because it improved the life quality of so many women that we've been able to make quantum leaps and make even more strides in the name of feminism.
Television. I think it's separated people and it's brought people together. It's homogenized people, but it also drives people apart. Keeps us from wanting to relate to each other, and yet we get to be more the same because we see what everybody else is doing.
I think World War II did. Economics and employment, women, brought more women to the top. Just changed the whole world.
Probably the automobile. That would have to be the automobile. It made people more mobile. They could go more places, do more things.
I'll say the Renaissance. Well, because it brought about so much change with art and things like that, and also just how the world got to know each other and learned about different countries and what they did with art.
Oh gosh. Okay. There's a lot of events. I think World War II, because it kind of showed people, there's people different out there, and you just have to accept them, and they're just people like us, and they have the same feelings, and they're not any different, but they just have different beliefs or different looks and different religions, and we have to accept that. And people kind of saw the horror of what other people can do to other people just because of that, and I think we learned a little bit from it, but we still have to keep learning from it.
I think it was the Big Bang most changed history. I mean, without the Big Bang, where would we be?
Making of the atomic bomb. Because it changed the whole dynamics of we can now destroy ourselves in an instant. And even though supposedly we're safe now with Russia being pacified or whatever, economically destroyed, the threat's still going to be with us always, that we can die at any moment.